welcome to Let's Play Mega Man X2. Alright, let's get into some general information to start off, as we always do. The game originally released in Japan on December 16th, 1994, and would see release in other countries the following year in 1995. The game features the exact same graphics as the first game, but is enhanced thanks to the use of the CX4 graphics chip. You saw that with the fancy X that popped up when the Mega Man X logo appeared on screen a couple of minutes ago. Mega Man X2 is Mega Man X1, but expanded, for better and for worse. Many people, myself included, don't see X2 as highly as the original Mega Man X. There are some people who like X2 even more than the original X, but I'm not one of those people. I actually prefer the original X much more to X2. Right now I'm showing off some of the little attention to detail that X2 offers. Similar to X1, X2 is chock full of little bits and pieces of detail in every single one of its stages. The intro stage is no exception, though overall it is less iconic and just overall shorter of an intro stage compared to the highway in X1. The Mechaniloid factory that we have here is still a really fun intro stage for X2 that does a good job of teaching you, all the basic things. Walking, moving, dashing, wall jumping, and how to fight enemies, since we're going to be fighting our very first boss right now, the giant Mechaniloid. Unlike in X1, this first boss is something you have to actually defeat. You are expected to beat this thing, as opposed to Vile back in X1. Thankfully, it's super easy. It's just a big honking robot that jumps around, swings its arms every now and then. It doesn't do that much damage. It has really low defenses. It goes down really fast. You shouldn't be worried fighting the giant Mechaniloid here for the intro stage. Not at all. Overall, very easy boss. An effective intro stage. Again, I don't think it's as iconic as the highway in X1. There's a lot of things in X2 that try to replicate certain feelings that you would get from the original X to a lesser effect, and the intro stage and how all of that operates is a little less effective here than in X1, but overall, it serves its purpose. It introduces you to everything, the story, the mechanics, all the important mechanics anyway, and, launches us into what this game is going to be about, which is the X-Hunters. These three mysterious Reploids here, three mysterious Mavericks here, who are actively hunting Mega Man X. X-Hunters hunting the Maverick Hunter. The Maverick Hunter extraordinaire. Because story is has a much bigger emphasis in Mega Man X2 as compared to X1, there's more cutscenes with more dialogue that takes longer to get through, because there's just more stuff going on in the story as compared to the story of X1. It was more critical than ever for translations to be good in this. By the way, I'm playing this on the Legacy Collection, going over the manual that Legacy Collection provides you, all the basic features that Legacy Collection provides you. Same thing as an X1. I'll be playing the Legacy Collection version for all the numbered X titles for the Mega Man X series, so that's not different. It's more important than ever for the story and translations to make sense, especially when there is a heavier emphasis on story, and Mega Man X2 does not do that great of a job with its localization. We'll get into that more later, but here we have our 8 Mavericks for the game. From top left, we have Wire Sponge, Morph Moth. Top right, we have Flame Stag and Magna Centipede. Bottom right, we have Wheel Gator and Crystal Snail. And the bottom left, getting to them now, is Overdrive Ostrich and Bubble Crab. You can click on the you can button press on the X logo in the middle to get rid of the information of the stages and stuff if you want. That's going to be more important a little later on, once the X-Hunters properly get introduced into the gameplay portion of Mega Man X2. Currently, they've just been mysteriously introduced in the story portion of X2, but once they get introduced in the gameplay portion, that'll become more important. That's a cool heart tank. I love that heart tank is hidden in the left as soon as you enter the level. There aren't that many X games that do that with its collectibles, but there are a few that do, and it's always really cool when they hide their heart tanks just right there as soon as you start the level, just off to the side to the left. That's really cool when they do that. All right. So first off, we're going after Wire Sponge or Wire Hedemaro. Hedamaru, right? Oh, boy, I'm gonna butcher pronunciations. I'll tell you that much. Just like with X1, I'll be showing you the names of the Mavericks for, the American version that we're playing right now, as well as the Rockman 2 Japanese version of the game. So you will be seeing both versions of Maverick names, or irregular names, pop up. So I was saying, Mega Man X2 is a lesser version of X1. X1 is really, really tightly paced, really, really tightly designed. Everything has purpose. Everything is perfectly paced and perfectly balanced in such a way that you have fun from the minute you start playing X1 to the minute you're done playing X1. X2 is the beginning of Capcom using the Mega Man X franchise to create classic Mega Man games, but expanded. And by expanded, I mean adding layers on top of the traditional formula. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. There are some X games in this series that layer on gimmicks and special features exclusive to certain games that really, really work well. There are some games that do a great job of layering in additional things on top of the classic defeat 8 bosses formula that Mega Man has, and does it to great effect. Mega Man X2, I would say, does it to slightly lesser effect. By the way, here I'm showing off again the incredible attention to detail of Mega Man X2. You can use certain Maverick weapons to manipulate the weather in Wire Sponge's stage. You can use Crystal Snail's Crystal Hunter weapon to create a fog. That's a kind of weather effect that doesn't appear naturally in Wire Sponge's stage. The only way you can see the fog is by shooting a crystal snail weapon into these weather orbs. You can also manipulate it by shooting Bubble Crab's weapon, and that creates rain that we saw earlier. And you can also shoot Flame Stag's weapon to create a hot, sunny day, as we saw, as we also seen in this stage. It doesn't really do much in terms of actual gameplay. It's just an aesthetic thing, and it only lasts for a short amount of time before it goes back to the weather that is supposed to be in this part of the stage. So, it's a very small thing, but it's a very cool attention to detail. X2 does not lack for attention to detail, does not lack for obvious care that is put into... It does not lack for the obvious care that was put into the design of the game. It was very, very obviously created by people who really like this franchise and are really good at developing into this franchise. It's just that once we start with X2, we start getting into this habit with the Mega Man X series of layering in gimmicks on top of the traditional formula. And some of those gimmicks work well, some of those gimmicks work to lesser effect. I always found X2 to be, sort of middle of the road when it comes to the whole X series. I actually found that during my playthroughs for this Let's Play, I found myself liking Mega Man X2 more than I originally did. Not enough to say that it's better than X1 or anything crazy like that, but I have found that compared to other gimmicks in the X series, the gimmicks that are introduced in X2 are, they're relatively well done. I enjoy them to a certain degree, to a certain effect. We'll get into it more. Right now we have a loss right now. Wire Sponge is the recommended first stage in Mega Man X2, just as Mega Man X1 had Shill Penguin as the recommended first stage. Wire Sponge here is the best first stage. The level is not that demanding. You can get through it with regular regular unarmored, no hard tanks X, no sub tanks X pretty easily. The hard tank and the sub tank that are hidden here are really easy to get, as you saw as I was rambling on about the gimmicky nature of the Mega Man X series and how that sometimes works and doesn't work. The collectibles here are easy to get, the level's not that long, it's not that difficult, and Wire Sponge himself is a very easy Maverick to take on. He only does a couple of things. He goes up to the ceiling like so, and fires out little seeds that grow into little vines. The little vines don't really do anything except act as obstacles. When Wire Sponge is low on health, he will shoot out lightning, 3 bolts that only fire out to a certain that only rain down from a certain range. So if you're far enough away from Wire Sponge, then the lightning is never going to get you. And occasionally he shoots out his strike chain out towards you to try to try and hit you, and jumps around. Not really that much to Wire Sponge. He's very, very simple to take on. An excellent first Maverick to go after. The explosions here in X2 take longer to get through as opposed to the ones in X1. Not a bad thing, just something to point out. Small little difference from X1 to X2. Again, it's the Mega Man series for teenagers as opposed to classic Mega Man, which is the Mega Man series for kiddos. So, there's that. Next up, we're going to go after Wheelgator. I'm not going to be showing the password screen anymore, as with most other games that feature a save system or a password system. I'm only going to be showing you the very first time that password thing comes up, and then every time after that I edit it out just for a smoother Let's Play experience. So now we have Wheelgator, or Wheel Alligates, as he's known in Rockman X2. Coming up here in Wheelgator stage, first of all, we have an excellent spot for farming. There are much better methods for farming sub-tanks in Mega Man X2 as compared to Mega Man X1. But they do require you to have certain weapons and certain Dr. Light upgrades. So if you don't have any weapons or Dr. Light upgrades, this spot right here is a decent little spot to just grind out for your sub-tanks. The reason I'm showing this for so long is that Wheel Alligator stage actually has a special gimmick that goes on in the background. Unlike most stages, actually unlike every single other stage, both X1 and in X2, Wheel Alligator stage actually has a day-night cycle. If you wait here long enough, then it will become nighttime eventually. It takes a few minutes, but it will eventually become nighttime, and it's just a really nice, really nice visual, it's really nice visual flair for Wheelgator stage. That, again, Mega Man X2 does not lack for attention to detail. It is just as chock full of little Easter eggs and fun little visual quirks that the original Mega Man X had. There is absolutely just a lot of love and care put in this. Here I am using the strike chain to try and get the Dr. Light capsule. There's another way to get this Dr. Light capsule that's hidden here, but I am playing through all the stages in a manner where if you play Mega Man X2 in with a certain order in mind, going after Mavericks in a certain order, then you will never have to revisit any single stage in Mega Man X2. That's not necessarily true for Mega Man X1. No matter what, there's usually, because of just how convenient the dash is in Show Penguin stage, you probably go there first, and you're going to have to revisit later with Flame Amit's weapon. So no matter what, there's always going to be a little bit of revisiting previous stages in the original Mega Man X. In Mega Man X2, by the way, here's the alternate method of getting up there. You can use the foot parts that we get in the next stage we go to get up there easier. But I'm going to be playing through this game and going after the Mavericks in the order that allows you to get everything without ever having to revisit any of the stages. And that's going to involve exploiting some little tricks here and there for certain hard tanks and sub tanks, and we'll be walking through how getting those works as they become relevant. Wheelgator actually features a hard tank that is going to require that I do a little damage boost trick that we'll talk about as soon as we get to it, because it's pretty easy to pull off and there's no reason not to do it, especially since, again, if you go through this game in a certain order. I paused accidentally. If you go through this game in a certain order, then you will essentially never have to revisit any stages, which is, a pretty great thing about Mega Man X2. Again, it involves you having to exploit certain tricks, but it's a pretty good thing. We have ride armors. They're back. They're cooler than they were in the original X. They have these big spike arms. You can hold the button down to charge up the attack and do a dash attack with the ride armor. The ride armor can also fly around for a little bit. Here's the hard tank. In order to get this hard tank normally, we'll see the normal sequence of events that it takes, but you can use this enemy here and just have it shoot, take the damage, and then immediately just damage boost up the spike wall to grab that hard tank. It's very easy. It's a very easy trick to pull off. If you die, the the checkpoint for the stage is right here in front of that heart tank. So you will be able to very easily practice getting that heart tank. So I would recommend you always do the damage boost method. If you want to go after the heart tank normally, then you can use the arm parts, which we'll talk about in a second, because my god, they're super useful. The arm parts that we got from Dr. Light earlier in this level, as well as Flame Stag's weapon charged up. So let's get into the arm parts. Again, it's a Mega Man X game, so there's so much stuff to talk about in such a small amount of time. The arm parts in Mega Man X2. One of the reasons I found myself liking Mega Man X2 a lot more in this playthrough as compared to previous ones is I never fully appreciated just how amazing the arm parts are in Mega Man X2. And by the way, we saw that boss store up there that I didn't try to go through. We're going to talk about that in a second because that's the main gimmick of Mega Man X2. We'll get into that once we actually finish the stage and it becomes more relevant. The arm parts are absolutely amazing. They are the first Dr. Light upgrade you should absolutely get because they are a game changer. They make every single boss manageable. I'm not going to be really using weaknesses for any bosses until we get to the rematches just to show them to you. But I'm not really going to be using them at all in the normal playthrough because the arm parts just do so much damage and are just so useful so useful and manageable to use. They make every single boss manageable. They make levels easier. The arm parts are absolutely amazing in Mega Man X2. The fact that you get this double charge shot that bypasses enemy invincibility frames to do more damage. By the way, this is another great spot for farming sub-tanks if you want. The fact that the double X-Buster that we get in Mega Man X2 bypasses invincibility frames is such a crazy game changer. It's absolutely amazing. The arm parts are one of the best things about Mega Man X2. They're one of the reasons why I like it a little bit more in this playthrough. These arm parts are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I can't say enough good things about the arm parts. By the way, showing off that just like in the previous game, the arm parts allow you to use charged versions of your special weapons, so the strike chain becomes a bigger chain. It's not that crazy, but, you know, it is what it is. And by the way, I said I'm not going to be using weaknesses for all the bosses. Wheel Gator is a great reason as to why. Wow, Wheel Gator is a boss. He is probably one of the more poorly designed bosses in Mega Man X2. Is that fair to say? Yeah, you know what? It's a little fair. It's kind of fair to say. Because this boss, in most Mega Man games, if you're good and you understand the boss strategy or you have the boss weakness, then the boss fight will be quick as a reward for having... Oh, I paused again accidentally. The boss fight will be quick if you have the weakness for the boss or you understand how the boss works. There are ways to exploit it or use the weakness, and you can end the boss fight really fast. Wheel Gator punishes you for using his weakness. Every time you hit him with Strike Chain, Wire Sponge's weapon, which is his weakness, he will immediately go under the water, and we have to go through this whole song and dance of waiting for him to fire up a couple of wheel strikes here before he finally tries to jump out and take a bite out of Mega Man and hold him down and try to hold him down with his mighty jaws. I would absolutely recommend, if you already have the Dark Delight arm parts from earlier in this very stage, don't bother using Wheel Gator's weakness. Alright? First of all, you're not going to see most of his attacks if you do. Second of all, it just takes forever with the Strike Chain. At least this way, even though I'm taking more damage, I'm getting through the fight faster because the arm parts are just so strong, and you know, it's a very poorly designed boss fight. I didn't talk about it too much. He goes under the water. He fires up some wheel strikes. Those can chase Mega Man down. When he does come out of the water and you don't hit him with his weakness, he can do a couple of things. He can fire shots from his mouth. He's kind of invincible as he charges out the shots before he fires them. He can charge from one side of the room to another. If he charges into a wall in one side of the room to another, then he will. It's called spin wheel. I was calling it wheel strike or whatever. If he charges from one side of the room to another, he will leave spikes on the walls where he makes contacts, and those spikes will hurt Mega Man. Not instantly kill him, but they will hurt him for for making contact. And he can fire more spin wheels, either from under the water or when he's above the water. Anyway, it's a very poorly designed boss fight. I wouldn't recommend you ever use his weakness. It's time to talk about the X-Hunters, because now they're being properly introduced into the actual gameplay of Mega Man X2. Before, they were just part of the story, but now here they are actually engaging with the main mechanics of the game. So the whole conceit of this is the X-Hunters have been collecting and attempting to rebuild Zero, Mega Man's friend. You can see him on the left side in our little in our little panels there on the side. You can see Zero right there. They have been collecting and trying their best to rebuild Zero. Dr. Kane and Mega Man X here at Maverick Hunter Base have the essential control chip that is necessary to actually reactivate Zero and make him as he was. The X-Hunters don't have that. And the whole conceit is that they are now challenging Mega Man for the rights to rebuild Zero, essentially. I mean, there's a little bit more to it than that, but they're challenging him for the rights to rebuild Zero. If X wins, then he will be able to rebuild Zero. If the X-Hunters win, then the X-Hunters will be able to rebuild Zero. So now, here they are, across the world. They are hanging out in the Maverick stages. Let's talk about how this all actually works. To begin with, I'm already going to enter a stage that has an X-Hunter waiting for me in there, and I'm going to fight that X-Hunter immediately as soon as I get in there. So yeah, let's just start talking about the X-Hunters. As soon as they're introduced, they will teleport down to 3 seemingly random stages. I say seemingly random because if you go the order that I'm going, then they're always going to teleport into the stages that they just teleported in. So if you go the order that I'm going, then they're always going to show up in the same places. If you don't go the order I'm going, or if you do stuff to manipulate how they teleport around, then they can suddenly become very random on where they go. But once they're in a stage, you have to locate the alternate boss door. We saw one of the alternate boss doors in Wheelgator stage. We couldn't enter it because there was no X-Hunter there at the time. Every single stage in Mega Man X2 features an alternate boss door where an X-Hunter could be waiting for X. Some of them have requirements in order to get them. For example, this boss door that we have here in Overdrive Ostrich's stage required us to have Spin Wheel from Wheelgator. If you don't have it, then you can't actually reach the boss door where Violin, our first X-Hunter, is waiting. So let's talk about Violin now. Violin has only 3 attacks, right? Yeah, he has 3 attacks. He has his scatter shot from the ground, his scatter shot from the sky, and he also has a giant mace that he can wield. There's the giant mace right now. There's the giant ball and chain right now. He also jumps around. In terms of strategy, he just does those 3 things. It's not that complicated. Of the X-Hunters, I would say he's probably the most dangerous. Because his ball and chain just does so much damage. His spike ball just does so much damage that I would never recommend you fight Violin without a sub-tank. At this point, you should have a sub-tank from Wire Sponge's stage. If you do, then good. Make sure it's filled up, because I would not recommend you go after Violin without a full sub-tank, especially if you don't have, you know, all the hard tanks yet. If you don't have all the health for X yet, I wouldn't recommend you fight Violin so early. Unless you have a sub-tank, which we do. For beating Violin, we get a Zero part. Once we pause the game, you can see that Zero part is actually Zero's body, his torso, and his arms. So, cool. We got that back. Alright, so, continuing to talk about the X-Hunters. There is an alternate boss door in every single stage. An X-Hunter could be waiting in there. You will know if an X-Hunter is in that stage if you see the little Sigma insignia over the over the area of the world where the boss you're going after currently is at. So because there was a little Sigma insignia over the desert where Overdrive Ostrich was waiting, then there was going to be an X-Hunter here. So, you know, that's the basics of how the X-Hunter system works. There is more to it that we'll talk about after we finish Overdrive Ostrich's stage that makes the X-Hunter system sort of controversial. There's certainly ways to manipulate the X-Hunter system to your advantage, and we'll talk about those as well, but of the many, many various gimmicks that the Mega Man X series introduces, the X Hunter system is, I wouldn't say it's the weakest one, but it's certainly one that you need to go in knowing how it works. If you don't know how it works, Mega Man X2 has two endings. A good ending and a bad ending. And if you don't know how the X Hunter system works, then you're going to be locked out of the bad ending and be forced to replace certain things again or find certain passwords to regain certain progress. So, you know, on that level, it's it can be kind of a downer, the X Hunter gimmick here, but you know, overall it's implemented relatively well. And you know, I've been playing this game so many times with this Let's Play that I've kind of grown to really like the X Hunter system a lot more. We're getting our second Dr. Light capsule here, but I also want to mention the Ride Chaser, which was the bike that we were riding. Very heavily advertised, that bike, in the cover art for Mega Man X2 and, you know, lead up material for Mega Man X2. It's only in this one stage, so it's kind of unfortunate, you know. It's a really cool thing to have in the Mega Man X series, but it's only in this one level. It comes back later in other Mega Man X games, but you know, you would think or hope that the game that introduces the cool Ride Chaser, the bike, would feature the would feature it some more, but it's only here in Overdrive Ostrich's stage. And you know, it works fine, but it's not my favorite thing. Getting the heart tank is very, very finicky with the Ride Chaser. It takes quite a few tries to make the jumps necessary to get it. We also got the Dr. Light upgrade, the foot parts, so we can now dash in midair. That is a great addition to the essential, wonderful dash that we get in the first Mega Man X game. Being able to dash midair is wonderful. Let's talk about Overdrive Ostrich. He has a few attacks. He has his Sonic Slicer, which is the little pink boomerang thing that he shot out. He has the charged version of Sonic Slicer, which is that series of pink boomerangs that rain down. He can do little kicks, and he can do basic charges. If you leave him on screen, if you leave him off screen for long enough, then he will do the animation that he did when he first entered the boss battle, but he is going to do it as an attack. He will try to jump down from the background and try to land on you and do some contact damage. So overall, Overdrive Ostrich can be kind of a handful because he has quite a few attacks and requires you to be very, very very mobile. You have this weird sloping battlefield that goes up and down, up and down, up and down. But the Dr. Light arm parts, the double charged Buster, is so good that even, you know, bosses that are kind of a handful like Overdrive Ostrich are pretty manageable overall. I mean, I wouldn't classify any boss in Mega Man X2 as difficult if you have the arm parts already. Cool. We got ourselves the... Go on, there it is. Sonic Slicer. That is the attack that Overdrive Ostrich was using against us in the fight, and now we get to have it, as is the classic Mega Man way. So we beat Violan. He's not going to appear in the map anymore. Let's talk a little bit more about the X Hunter system, because there is more to talk about. As I said, they can appear in any of the ed stages. In between, after you beat a stage, they will teleport around to different locations. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that you enter a stage. In this case, I'm entering Overdrive Ostrich again. There is an X Hunter in here. We saw when we saw them teleport in, there was one over the desert. But let's say I don't actually fight the X Hunter. What happens if I complete a stage without fighting the X Hunter? Unfortunately, it's a thing that's not really fully advertised. I wish it was, because it would make the gimmick a little bit better if it was fully advertised. But it's not, so we're going to talk about it now. If you finish a stage without fighting an X Hunter, and the X Hunter was in that stage, the X Hunter disappears forever. You are locked out of the good ending for this game if you complete a stage that has an X Hunter, but you don't fight that X Hunter. Now, what happens if you want to go to a certain stage, like I want to go to Overdrive Ostrich's stage, and I know there's an X-Hunter there because I saw Violan teleport in, but I don't want to fight an X-Hunter yet because I'm too weak, or I want to get their weaknesses, or I want to get more heart tanks, or whatever. I just want to save them until later. If you enter a stage, and then if you enter a stage you've already beaten, there have to be at least two that you've already beaten, because the X Hunters only start appearing after you defeat two Mavericks. If you enter a stage you've already beaten and then exit the stage, then the X Hunters will just teleport around again. So this is how you can manipulate the placement of the X Hunters. So if you want to go after Overdrive Ostrich next, and you see there's an X Hunter there, but you're not ready to fight X Hunters yet, then just enter a stage you've already beaten, use the exit unit, use the escape unit, and then from there you can just you can force them to teleport around the map and make it so that the stage you want to go into next doesn't have any X Hunters. That way you don't risk the X Hunters completely disappearing forever and locking you out of the best ending just because you weren't ready to fight them just yet. And just because RNG wasn't on your side. You can manipulate the RNG, you can force the X Hunters to teleport around. That is how the X Hunter gimmick works. They're going to start appearing after you defeat any two Mavericks. And if they're in a stage that you want to go to, and you have an intention of fighting the X Hunters because you want the best ending, but you're not ready to fight X Hunters yet, then you can just enter a stage you've already beaten. Again, there have to be at least two stages you've already beaten because of the way the X Hunter system works. And just use the escape unit, and you can force the X Hunters to start teleporting around and get into a position that is more favorable for, whatever purposes that for whatever purposes you want. Here we are now in the last stage of this video, which is Bubble Crabs. We have a unique mini-boss situation here. This fish that I just destroyed with the Overdrive Ostrich, which is his main weakness, has a unique gimmick. So that is the sub-boss of the stage. And that fish that we just destroyed, that mini-boss, is directly tied into the X Hunter boss door that is in this stage. So we'll get to it later, but that fish is directly tied into the X Hunter boss door here. A lot of stuff to talk about. It's a Mega Man X game, so every video is going to be chock full of me just going on and on about stuff because there is just so much to talk about in every stage. We're actually about to come up to another collectible that I'm going to be using a alternate strategy for in order to prevent me from having to revisit Bubble Crab stage in the future to collect this weapon. So normally, in order to get this sub tank that I'm about to get, you would have to beat Bubble Crab. You would have to have Bubble Crab's weapon as well as the Dr. Light arm parts. The sub tank is up here. I am going to use the splash jump exploit to do this. It takes a few tries. I'm not that good at it, but it takes a few tries. Basically, you run to this point. You get on an angle, and then you just start mashing X in order to just keep jumping repeatedly on the surface of the water. This one is a little bit more difficult to explain, so there's going to be a link below that walks you through these specific steps to execute that exploit to get that sub-tank earlier than normally intended, if you want to get the sub-tank that way. Otherwise, the method of getting that sub-tank we'll see in the next video. It's you have to use the weapon that you get for beating Bubble Crab in conjunction with the arm parts, because you have to use the charged-up version of Bubble Crab's weapon. We could proceed by going through that door that was below us, but we're actually going to go up here because we have an X Hunter in this stage, and we have already beaten the mini-boss. I'll explain more about how the mini-boss system works, but first let's actually go ahead and fight the X Hunter that is waiting for us here. So, previously we fought Violin, now we're going to fight Agile. Agile is the tall guy, and he also has a beam saber, just like Sigma did in X1. Agile has two attacks. He has this sweep. He has that sweeping uppercut thing that creates a beam that goes across the arena, and he has that stupid dash attack. I hate that dash attack. It's so unpredictable. It's unpredictable when he does which attack that he's going to do. There's no real tells to it, so you're probably going to be taking some hits here. Compared to Violin, he's not as difficult, if only because he only has the two attacks, and no matter how random it is, it's always a 50-50 chance he's either going to do the dash or he's going to do the sweeping uppercut thing. So compared to Violin, he's not that bad. I don't have any of their weaknesses yet. In part 2, we're going to be getting into the weaknesses of all the X Hunters, because that's going to be when I start collecting the relevant weapons for the relevant weapons that are considered the weaknesses for the X-Hunters. But for now, I just beat Agile. He's not that bad. Compared to Violan, you don't necessarily need a sub-tank. I would go in with a sub-tank. For all three of the X-Hunters, I would go in with sub-tanks. But that's especially true with Violan. With Agile, it's, a little bit more... If you're confident, then go in without a sub-tank. If you're not, then go in with a sub-tank. That's just how it is. So let's talk a little bit more about that alternate boss door, because that alternate boss door is tied in with this fish. So this mini boss of Bubble Crab stage basically races you to the to the underwater base where Bubble Crab is at. So if you let the fish get to the end of its path first, it's going to dock where we fought Agile. And if you let the fish get here, then if there is an X-Hunter in this stage, they will not show up. So that is the important thing to take note here. If you want to fight an X-Hunter in this stage, you have to destroy this fish before it docks here in the area where you actually fight the X-Hunter. If you don't, then you're going to be locked out of the boss fight. Again, the gimmicks that are layered on top of the Mega Man X games from this point onward, some of them are great, some of them, not so great. People have sort of mixed feelings on how the X-Hunters were implemented and handled in X2. After playing it many times for this for this Let's Play, I found it to be much more enjoyable than I originally thought. Not to the point where I would say it's one of my favorite gimmicks in the Mega Man X series, but it's not the worst one of them all. Here I'm just showing off the entire base part of Bubble Crab's stage, just to show you where you come in if you entered via the normal door, as opposed to going up to where you had to where you can fight an X-Hunter. The end of the stage is right here, so now we're going to go ahead and fight Bubble Crab and then end this video. Wow. Man, I am looking at Audacity right now. I've been talking and rambling for 37 minutes. That is impressive, even for me. Alright, so let's talk about Bubble Crab. Bubble Crab is weak to Wheelgator. Yeah, he's weak to Wheelgator. I'm not going to be using it for the normal fight here because, again, the double charge buster that you get from Wheelgator stage in the Dr. Light capsule is just amazing. Wheelgator has a few things he can do. He puts up his bubble shield. Whenever you dash above him, whenever you are directly above Bubble Crab, he will always stop whatever he's doing, create those two big laser horns that come out of the top of his body, and jump up to try and damage you. He can also create smaller crab bombs that are in bubbles and fire out a little ring of bubbles that temporarily go after X. He can also shoot out smaller smaller crabs that swarm the screen that aren't in any bubbles, as you can see. Whenever you dash above him, he will always he will always stop whatever he's doing, get rid of his shield, and jump up to attack X. That's your best opportunity to lay damage on him with his weakness, which is Wheelgator or the double arm buster. Alright, thank you very much for listening. I will see you all next time for more Let's Play Mega Man X2.